Come on back into another episode of Game Runs Deep. I'm Sudu, and today we've got a special guest, Ben Garrett, out of commission for the day. So my good friend, Miles Garrett, joining us. Former Fox 5 sports anchor, reporter, now a freelance content creator like myself. Miles, welcome to GRD, baby. How you doing? How we feeling?
Big fan of the show. Happy to finally be on here. You traded in one Garrett for another one. I'm honored.
I know. I was thinking about that when I asked you to come on. Yeah, Ben got to me early this morning and was like, hey, man, I've got a lot going on. And, of course, we're doing a huge live stream tomorrow, Thursday, February 12th at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be covering
now, why
the Trinidad. Well,
that?
I'm glad you asked, buddy. Glad you asked. Trinidad Chambliss, of course, has his injunction hearing in Pittsburgh, Mississippi, a case that many are looking at could be something that could set precedent for future rulings against the NCAA or in favor of the NCAA. We're going to get to that, obviously, but we're going to go live at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, and we'll be on as long as it takes to get a decision. We've got Brad Logan, who will be in Pittsburgh, live streaming the actual court case as well. And this will be Talk of Champions, not Game Runs Deep, so I'll be on their network and their show for that. So we're really excited about that, and just to see what happens, just as a fan of college sports and obviously an Ole Miss guy, but also just a fan of college athletics, what happens in that case. So with all that being said, Ben was busy. Ben needed a day to himself, and his cousin Miles Garrett decided to step up and join the show. Before we start, Miles, I mean, I don't know how much of my audience overlaps with your audience, but just kind of fill us in on what's going on right now with you, man, and what you're doing. I mean, we're obviously both in Atlanta, former coworkers at Fox, but what you're excited about coming up.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, as obviously you're very well aware, I come from a similar breadth as you do, both working for Fox 5 here in Atlanta, covering the Georgia Bulldogs in depth, covering the Falcons in depth, also covering Georgia Tech in
I was going to
depth. So
say,
we give
shout
them
out
some
the
love.
Jackets, man.
Shout out Brent Key and the Jackets. We covered them pretty in depth, or covered them rather pretty in depth at Fox 5. So yeah, officially a free agent as of this week. Churning out my own content as well, and a lot of exciting stuff to come. Don't want to spoil any stuff quite yet because some stuff isn't live. But churning out some content on my Instagram, Miles Garrett, Miles M Garrett on Instagram, Miles Garrett TV on X. So a lot of content coming. Falcons, Georgia Tech, you name it, Atlanta sports, it's all there.
Heck yeah. And yes, very excited about what's to come. We're gonna get to work together again, which is awesome because when I left Fox, obviously we continue to be friends and hang out, but we didn't get to really have that professional relationship anymore. So glad to see that will continue. But obviously right now, Miles, I mean, the biggest thing, we talked about it off the rip in college sports. I mean, it's all these eligibility questions and lawsuits and things that are different in the sport than what we've seen in the first however many years of college athletics, right? At least in our lifetime. I mean, things have changed so drastically over the last few years. And we talk about the Trinidad Chambliss case, which we'll get to in a little bit, but one that favored the NCAA recently, which is kind of rare. Like, I feel like a lot of court cases have gone against the NCAA, was, of course, Alabama's Charles Bediako, right? He, of course, played at Alabama for a couple seasons, goes to the NBA, gets drafted, plays for a G League team, actually signs a 2-way contract with the Spurs as well, and then decides, you know what, I'm coming back to college basketball. He got a temporary restraining order to be allowed to essentially play because the NCAA said, no, you can't do this. Mm-hmm. Got a temporary restraining order, plays a few games for Alabama, and then last Friday he had an official hearing to get a full-time, I guess, not a temporary restraining order, but just a general injunction. And the judge ruled against it, which was surprising because it was in Alabama. And, like I said, these cases have gone against the NCAA, but the judge essentially ruled siding with the NCAA in the sense of, one, they try to argue that it would cause him irreparable damages financially. And I think the judge was like, but it wouldn't, because you are a former pro player who's made money, and they didn't sufficiently show to the judge that it would cause any kind of financial damages. But number two, within NCAA's own system, the judge said, well, you guys essentially are trying to operate within the NCAA system, and the system very clearly states that if you go play pro, you can't come back. And so that was essentially the ruling. It's denied Charles Bediako. And now it creates a lot of questions because the NCAA has Miles allowed some G Leaguers to come back. But then they claim with those guys, well, those guys never actually played college basketball like Bediako did. And they didn't sign a two-way deal like Bediako did. So it's all these little nuances they're using to ultimately decide if some guys get to play again after going to the pros and some guys don't. And it's interesting for me because I'm around college athletics all day, every day. I know you mostly focus on a lot of Falcon stuff, but just wanted to get your perspective. Like, what do you think when you kind of get you're seeing this and you kind of get thrown at all this? Which I know over the last week you've like really been into it, and we had this discussion in your kitchen the other day with your roommate Matt, who's a Bama guy, and I know Matt wasn't happy, but it's interesting, man. It's like there's no blanket rule. Everything is so like nuanced and just it's like they're almost nitpicking like what they're allowing and what they're not allowing right now.
Yeah, and to be honest, I was really gonna say exactly what we had discussed the other day, talking about how the NCAA as a governing body, is it really a governing body? You have all these different types of quote unquote rules that they say that they list out, but do they actually have the authority to carry a lot of this stuff out? In the case of Bediako, you just listed it. You say on paper, yes, you go over to the G League and you're signing a contract and you're making money from the NBA in theory. That would technically fall under that jurisdiction of okay, you've done your time, you can't come back to the NCAA. You see different rulings where, guys are going professional but not officially signed. There's no money technically involved yet. And is there a difference there when it comes to pen to paper versus, nothing really happened. I can go back and go back to the university where I was playing at. And the eligibility questions, of course, come alongside that. But I think Bediako's case is a little bit more unique, especially when you compare it to, Trinidad Chambliss or some other different college athletics type players where the eligibility questions are a little bit more present when it comes to they played D2, they played, they had medical red shirts in the case of Trinidad, different cases like that where it's a little bit more broad and I think a little bit more language that benefits the player to say, hey, based on what you're saying, the NCAA, I still can play, whether or not you want to rule that or not. Bediako, I think, is a case where it does kind of fall in the NCAA's favor because of that pen to paper contract where he was making money. He was playing games in the G League. It had already been established. So I think that's sort of the biggest thing that differentiates this compared to other guys and other players where the NCAA, they can kind of take a victory lap here, however long they want to take it when it comes to his case, because it looks like this one rules in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many aspects of it like going on. I mean, there's can you go to a pro league and come back? Two, there's the issue of JUCOs, which we've seen with Diego Pavia and Joey Aguilar and all those guys, right? Then your Trinidad Chambliss' case to me is the most kind of old school type of case, which is the guy was not able to play, in Division Two Ferris State. He didn't play the first two seasons. First year redshirted, second year medical redshirt. Right? It seems very simple.
Mhm.
He had respiratory issues. He had tonsillitis. This all stemmed from mono that he had a bad case, and it just created an environment where Trinidad, at least his lawyers are arguing, and what the doctor's notes say from his time at Ferris State, which is he just wasn't able to compete. He wasn't able to even be athletic because of the issues he was suffering. That seems like a very clear cut, dry, normal, what the NCAA would sign off on as a medical redshirt. But the NCAA is claiming, well, there's not sufficient evidence, or the evidence itself is contradicting, is kind of what they're ruling right now. And it's just, it feels to me, and maybe this is some of my bias as a fan of Ole Miss, and I try my hardest to try to look at it from above. I really do, and I'll even call myself out on that. Maybe it is. But I look at his case and I go, how is his case the one that's going to court? Like the other one's understandable. Like if you play JUCO football, the NCAA has always maintained that those count toward its governing body. Now there's actual legal precedents within states that can obviously change that, and that's a whole nother issue. But with Trinidad, it just feels like this is the most cut and dry, simple. I wasn't able to play because I had a medical problem. Here you go. Here's a medical red shirt. Yet the NCAA is trying to use Trinidad's case as this kind of, if this goes on in his favor, this is a make or break for our sport. And I look at his case
Precedent.
and I go, no, it's
Mhm.
not. It's the least out of all the cases. Bediako, which is a literal pro basketball players coming back to college. You could even make the argument about overseas players coming to play college basketball. Like, you could even make that and say that shouldn't be allowed. You could look at Diego Pavia and Joey Aguilar and say, why don't their JUCO seasons count? Those have always counted. But Trinidad's case, to me, it's like, it's so cut and dry. The guy couldn't play because he literally had a medical issue. The NCAA said no. Ole Miss appealed. They said no again. So Ole Miss was like, okay, we're just going to take it to court. Because at this point, what we're arguing, what we're trying to explain to you happened, you're not even accepting, which is within your own parameters normally. Like, you always rule yes in situations of medical issues where a guy literally cannot play. The old coach is saying that. The team doctor is saying that. The other doctor that treated Trinidad is saying that. Yet the NCAA
also
says
a NCAA broadcast is saying that per se. I
true.
mean, it's being brought up in the case right now where they're literally saying that this is being used. Your own broadcasters, it's kind of a conflict of interest there when your own party broadcasters, however you want to label it at this point, is literally saying that he's under the understanding, they're under the understanding that this is how it is right now. And it seems like they're contradicting themselves at this point by crediting that, hey, no, it didn't count. Well, you look back 3 or 4 years ago, you're saying it counted. It was a result of that back then too. So it's one of those cases where you assume they're almost cornering themselves based on the precedent they set a few years ago.
100%. I mean, and here's the thing. It's not like the NCAA itself came out a couple years ago and Charlie Baker himself said Trinidad Chambliss has a medical redshirt. Like, that, of course, didn't happen. But what Miles is referring to, if you haven't seen it, is, of course, the Division II national title game, I believe, is what that was, which is an NCAA production. That isn't ESPN. That isn't Fox. That isn't NBC. That is the NCAA itself. And the announcers on the call bring up the fact that, hey, this guy had a medical redshirt year. When Trinidad Chambliss transferred to Ole Miss, there were tons of articles written that talks, of course, it always mentions, right, this is the amount of years this guy has left. And in most of those articles, it said medical redshirt. So this was established. People act like Ole Miss wants to do this because they know that they've got this incredible quarterback and they want to keep him another year. So they just made poof out of thin air, just made this up. No, this has been a thing for years. It has been written about. It has been talked about. Trinidad himself in interviews has mentioned, yeah, I redshirted this year. So then how is this all just like, it's being sold right now by other fan bases or some people that are, against any kind of like, quote unquote, funny business in college sports. They're selling it as if it's like just been created out of thin air by Ole Miss and its lawyers to keep Trinidad. But in reality, it's been the case. Now, the other thing Ole Miss is arguing, and this is where some of those criticisms, I guess, could make sense, is they're saying this would cause him irreparable damage financially because he's set to make a reported $5 million next season to come to Oxford. Now, if you're arguing he should come back because he's allowed to make that money, now, legally, there's probably basis for that, and it should probably be allowed because, like we said, the NCAA itself is not a governing body. Their laws don't mean anything in the United States, laws or courts. But I could see that argument. You go, okay, well, boo-hoo. He can't go make it in the NFL, right? Like, I could see that argument. My biggest thing for Trinidad is it's the most cut and dry medical situation you could have. I mean, the NCAA just gave a kid a 9th year to go play at Montana. I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name. Tuila Upupu, I believe is how you say it. If I mispronounce it, I'm very sorry. Solomon Tulia Upupu, I believe is how you say it. He's getting a 9th year of eligibility, and for legitimate reasons. Now, 9 years is insane, but the dude's had multiple season-ending injuries, surgeries. There's a case to be made that like, hey man, sucks, but 9 years is a little out of control, which part of me feels that way. But the other part of me goes, well, by the rule, technically he couldn't play because of injuries. Right. So that's why it's like, okay, fine. Montana's guy got it. Why are we making the whole thing about Trinidad Chambliss wanting a 6th year because he had respiratory issues? Why is this such a big deal? And that's what gets Ole Miss people who have been tormented by the NCAA in the past many, many times to think this is about a logo. This is about, we need to make an example. Let's make an example out of them because they're an easy target. We've done it forever. For a long time, we've gone after only them, or we've used them as an example. And that's where that theory comes from. I'm not saying that's true, but that's why that mindset persists within the Ole Miss fan base of all the NCAA is out to get us. Because in this situation, it just should feel like, hey, okay, couldn't play because he couldn't breathe. He kept his tonsils. Dude, I had terrible tonsillitis in college. My freshman year,
You
I got
are Trinidad Chambliss.
you could essentially say that. My freshman year of college and sophomore year of college, I was in the urgent care or the student medical, whatever the center was where you got medical treatment. I was there almost 2-3 times a month for upper respiratory infections and tonsillitis.
That's what you were there for.
Yes, that is very true. I can provide the NCAA documentation on that. To the point that when I got, and I also got mono my sophomore year, and it was after I got mono that it got worse for me. Like my tonsillitis, I was getting them every week. So I went to my ear, nose, and throat doctor, who I'd seen since I was a child, and he looked at my tonsils and was like, "We got to get these out. Like this is awful. Like this is why you're getting sick every week. Like your tonsils are terrible." And when they took them out, they showed them to me in a jar. And they were like, "Do you want to take them?" I was like, "No, I don't want to take my tonsils with me." But he said those are some of the most, like, he saw the most scar tissue on those tonsils that he's seen in any. And that's my point is, it's not like people act like because it wasn't a broken bone or torn ACL that it's some like, oh, respiratory issues. It's like, bro, have you had bad tonsillitis? It's hard to do much with that stuff. You get fevers and you can barely breathe. You can't swallow. You can't eat like the nutrition you need to eat to be a Division II college football player. Like all these things are true about it. And it's just being dismissed as like, oh, they're using some weak excuse. So it's going to be interesting, Miles, tomorrow to see what the judge in Pittsburgh, Mississippi rules. Once again, if you guys are obviously listeners of Game Runs Deep, you're obviously familiar with Talk of Champions, which is what me and Ben usually collab with. So we'll have an episode of Talk of Champions tomorrow at Spirit Ben, at Brad Logan, at Sudu TV. You can find it on any of our accounts, Mudcat Media as well. We will be live streaming. Brad will be in Pittsburgh, live streaming the actual court case. We will be inside of the courtroom and, of course, providing analysis, including our legal expert joining us as well. It's sure to be a good one. Miles, I don't know what you're doing. If you wanted to hop on, I'm sure cousin Ben would be glad to let you on as well. But nonetheless, it'll be very interesting because yes, if the NCAA, if the court says, no, we're not going to give you a temporary injunction, then to me, that becomes an inconsistency issue with the NCAA where you go, wow, okay, I guess some cases are okay for the NCAA medically and other cases are not. Maybe respiratory issues become a thing where they go, sorry, too bad, you had asthma attack, sorry.
Well, it goes beyond that too, because you talk about case specific, right? When it comes to injuries, if you want to call it that, or illnesses, if you want to call it that. I mean, if you rule in this case, in my opinion, not a lawyer whatsoever, so I might be completely corrected on this. Not yet, right? In regards to, okay, if this is what we're ruling against, then the language could broaden, in my opinion, when it comes to different other illnesses, injuries, you name it. Okay, if tonsillitis, whatever you want to call it, is that's off the table. That doesn't count. Well, where are you stopping when it comes to that? Is it just strictly injuries, like as we've come to know it, with bones, tendons, that type of thing, or is there going to be cases where this gets brought up again, which I'm sure it will? It's the NCAA, it's college football. These guys are going to be looking for any and all possibilities to potentially retain their eligibility with the amount of NIL money that's out there right now. So this will just be the tip of the iceberg, in my opinion. I think it's going to continue on. It's not going to stop. The NCAA knows this, and college football knows this too. I mean, guys are coming back at record pace right now and staying in school, signing these ridiculous NIL deals to where it's just going to be one little aspect of it that's going to set maybe a precedent when it comes to this specific type of thing, but it's going to open the door for other things. It's like, okay, you ruled just in this case. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same for this case. It's going to continue on.
No doubt. Yeah, it's going to be, I'm just very interested to see how it all shakes out because there's a lot. There's a lot when it comes to eligibility cases. Talk about Trinidad's issue, right? Now you got Joey Aguilar trying to go back to Tennessee. Now, he was a part of Diego Pavia's class action suit, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to go solo, take myself out of Diego's suit. And he's got a temporary restraining order right now. And Aguilar, honestly, based on Pavia's ruling and also some laws in the state of Tennessee, I don't think I think Aguilar is going to win. And I do believe, based on that Pavia ruling last year, that most JUCO cases now will be ruled as, because here's the deal. JUCO is not under the NCAA. It's the NJCAA, and then there's another one that they're under. There's two different ones. but it's not the NCAA. So why should NCAA rules apply for something that's not into the NCAA's body? That's been their main argument, and that's why Pavia got his extra year back. Aguilar is going to get his back. Now, some people, this is something I wanted to clear up for some of our listeners if you're kind of confused, because I've had this been asked to me. Some people think Pavia is trying to come back to Vandy for another year. That is not the case. It's the court case itself that is being used to give JUCO players a true 4 years in college, Division I FBS, or just NCAA in general.
Which, correct me if I'm wrong, the NCAA has ruled that those JUCO years officially count, correct?
Yeah, it's always been the case. You know, you play 2 years in JUCO and you play 2 years in college, and that's how it normally works. But because of Pavia's case, and obviously the bigger one that's being ruled right now, I think we're going to see a day where they go, well, sorry, JUCO isn't technically NCAA, so yeah, you could play 2 years of JUCO and then come play 4 in college. Like, I could see that happening. I'm probably putting my money on that happening. I think Aguilar is going to win his case. That doesn't bother me as much, especially with NIL and how teams are opting for older players. It could create an environment where high school kids get an opportunity to go develop some more in junior colleges and then still get to come back and have a full 4 years in college in Division I, or Division II, or whatever level of the NCAA you go to, allowing them to do that. I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I personally don't have an issue for up to 6 years, Miles. That's kind of how I see it. I'm like, if you're in college for about 6 years, to me, that's fine. Like, if there was a blanket rule that's like, hey, you get 6 years to play college football, I'd say, okay, cool. Not that you start all 6 years. Like, you get to start 4, but you have some, whatever, I transfer from this level or whatever. Like, you should be allowed to get 6. I'd be okay with that altogether. So we'll see what goes on there. Now, the other part of this, right? So let's kind of dig back into Bediako, because the Bediako case has brought this up, which is, well, the NCAA is ruling that Bediako played pro basketball, but then but then there's other people like coming from Europe that played pro basketball, right? And Ole Miss's head coach, Chris Beard, who was on Talk of Champions with Ben Garrett and Zach Berry, I believe, on Tuesday, they asked him about this because Nate Oates, Alabama's coach, I think specifically pointed out Elias Camerdine, who is who plays for Ole Miss, who came from abroad. I think Nate Oates brought him up specifically. And this is what Chris Beard had to kind of say in response to that. And this is kind of the argument I think a lot of people use when it comes to letting European players who have technically played professionally in Europe come back to play college basketball. What do you think of that, Miles? Me, as like I said, being an alum of Ole Miss, some of our listeners could say that Sudu's biased. You, as a graduate from Elon University,
Oh, there we go. Shameless plug. I love that.
Elon University. What do you think about what Chris Beard said?
Well, I mean, look, I think there is something to the fact, we've mentioned it already, when you say the eligibility, the technicality of the words of it, right? You have guys that are overseas that have not played, quote unquote, professional level when it comes to the NBA, right? That it's a lot different than, a guy going to the NFL and making the practice squad where he's making what, $230,000 a year, whatever the minimum is or the maximum is for practice squad players. A contract has been signed. It's different, I think, in that regard, to where this guy has not played collegiate basketball or football, whatever that might be, and he has not signed that contract to play professionally. I think there's a clear difference there that I think works in favor of what Beard's talking about in regards to, yeah, I mean, you don't have that. That language is not explicitly stated. So it's going to be weird to have that ruling sort of written down and enforced, because again, it's really, really broad, just like a lot of this other stuff is. We've already spoken about it in depth, but I do think there's a point there. Overseas guys, these are guys who are oftentimes playing semi-professional basketball overseas at 16, 15, however old it might be. I mean, look at Luka. He was a guy that was playing professionally basically before he was 18 years old. So could a guy like Luka come here and play college basketball after that before going to the NBA? Maybe. I mean, it seems like it would kind of relate to that in the way the language of the NCAA would entail when it comes to that. So, in my opinion, I think that the precedent is there to allow it. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But I think that there is sort of a leeway there to allow something like that to happen.
I think based on what the NCAA itself has said, which once again, I am not over here carrying their water in any way. I mean, I think they need to just be dissolved, and there needs to be a governing body who actually, what they say actually applies. But I will say, based on their thing, it's like, well, they haven't even played a season of college basketball technically. And to Beard's credit, I will say, what like he's saying, there's no setup like America over there in other parts of the world.
Damn right.
Exactly. Damn right. Yeah. That's a hell of a reference right there. Yeah, it took me a second. But they don't have the setup. They don't have the same development setup. It's you basically get thrown into like playing with grown-ups essentially if you're good enough, right? And you play on these club teams which aren't development teams like high school or AAU or college. And so I do understand that. But then you bring up a great point of like, what if you're a dominant player? You're, 17, 18, you're still within that like college sports age range. You've only played in these leagues, but you're just this dominant player. Should you be allowed to come play? And my argument is probably yes, because if you're going to let other people play, I mean, it doesn't matter what your talent level is.
Making that amount of money too.
Right. But see, that's the thing though. That's the inconsistency of the NCAA. Because I think in the past, was it Enes Kanter that tried to go to Kentucky?
That's a throwback. Yeah. I'd have to look that one up. I don't know.
I think it was Enes Kanter who they banned from playing. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Kentucky player years ago. And the NCAA said you can't play college basketball because you made, and it wasn't even that much money, Miles. This is like $30,000. I mean, as far as college sports is concerned, it is a lot of money, but college sports is considered like his family got like $30K from his like youth basketball team in Turkey. And they basically told him like, yeah, you can't come play college basketball. So this is the inconsistency of the NCAA. Now, granted, this is pre-NIL and all that stuff. But my thing, I kind of do agree with Beard. I'm like, okay, if you played pro overseas and you haven't played any American college basketball, now I think there does need to be some kind of age range, though. I don't think you should be able to be 25 or 27 and come play college basketball. Like, I think if you're within
the 24 to 25 age range is sort of that sweet spot.
I think, yeah, 100%. I think 18 to 24, honestly, should cover that. Because anything past that, you're kind of a grown ass.
Just go pro.
Yeah, just go pro. If you're good enough, go pro. Like, sorry, you couldn't play college. But I don't, I think if you're within that age range, you've never played college basketball, you're coming from overseas, whatever. There's a lot of nuance. Like, there is a lot of nuance to this, and it has to do with the way things have been ruled. And here's my thing with those G League guys. If the G League Ignite, so we've seen G League Ignite players come back. G League Ignite was created as a development program within the development program, which is the G League, which was if you're a high school player and you don't want to go to college, then you can go to G League Ignite for a season, basically learn under an NBA system essentially, and then you get to be eligible for the draft. So if you're a part of the G League Ignite, sure, you get to come back. Understandable.
Mhm.
I was never on Bediako's side on this case, though, because Bediako played college basketball,
Yes.
was
Yeah.
drafted, played as a two-way player. To me, that means your eligibility is over.
Yeah.
But if you just played G League Ignite, you didn't have a two-way deal, you didn't go, whatever, then if you want to come back, sure. And I think these rules need to be established, Miles, because what we're getting to right now is a point where if these rules are not established and set by a body that can actually enforce them, which is not the NCAA, it has to come
It's a
from
Wild
somewhere
West.
else. Brother, we're going to have guys on NFL practice squads that are coming back. I saw someone make a joke the other day. I think it was our friend Rusty Manziel, or maybe he just reposted it, of somebody saying, well, Jake Fromm technically has a year of eligibility. What's stopping him from going back to UGA?
Right. So does Matt Stafford, all these guys. Yeah.
I mean, so many guys who've left early could make that case. I mean, obviously, I don't think established players are going to be doing this, but like, if you're on a practice squad right now and you're a second year player in the NFL, or maybe you're a rookie, you were a rookie this year and you're maybe going to your second year, you're going, man, I want to go back to college and make $5 million.
Absolutely.
What's really stopping you? And I don't think any of us wants that. I don't think any fan of college sports or even the NFL, because imagine how these NFL teams are going to feel if their practice squad is depleted because they decided they want to go back to East Carolina or wherever. Temple.
Well, not just that. I mean, you go off the argument of practice squads. I try to use this example mostly because he's a friend of mine. I've actually done some videos with him, but he's a former NFL quarterback. He's been with a multitude of different practice squads, Kyle Sloter. So if he goes out there and has a great game in the preseason, he's not signed to the active roster by any means. He's a practice squad player. He did excellent in these preseason games. His stats are flawless. So you have a stat line like that. Obviously, he was undrafted, didn't have that publicity coming out of college. But suddenly now you have this tape of playing practice squad players, third, fourth, whatever quarter it is of an NFL preseason game. Suddenly you're like, whoa, like this guy's actually pretty. What's to say this guy could not get, he came from Northern Colorado at the time, was playing previously at Southern Miss. What's to say a team like, I don't know, any team like a Georgia Tech or a Clemson, a Miami, ACC, a random team that needs a quarterback that sees, whoa, this guy's balling out right now in an NFL preseason game. He is not signed to an active roster at this point. Why can't he come back? He's got another year of eligibility. This would fit that description and seemingly would be a favorable option for those types of players.
Without a doubt, man. And it's, we had Trey Wallace on, me and Ben did a couple weeks ago from Outkick, and Trey brought up the point of college baseball and minor league players, which he thinks is kind of the next kind of wild, wild west event to happen in college sports of minor league guys. Maybe, you played like single A or even lower. Some of those lower.
Talk about guys that aren't making a lot of money.
Exactly. Not making a lot of money. They're in the middle of nowhere, riding a bus, just struggling to make their dream come true. And they go, well, hey, Clemson wants to pay me. Maybe a bad example, Clemson.
Yeah, I was about to say. Ole Miss wants to pay me.
There you go. Ole Miss wants to pay me. Or just name a baseball powerhouse. Florida.
Vanderbilt.
Vandy, Florida. Any of these schools, like, they want to pay me $1 million to come back and play college baseball. And I have 2 years of eligibility remaining, 3 years of eligibility remaining. I mean, think of how many kids leave high school and go straight to into those minor league systems, and then they just don't make it. Those kids can then go, all right, man, I've had a couple years. And to me, this is exactly what the NCAA is kind of saying. The only difference is, was saying with the European kids, the only difference is like these kids were actually drafted, right? Usually into the MLB. What's stopping them from going, well, screw it. I never got to play college sports. Let me go play college baseball now. I'll go pitch for Vanderbilt for $1 million. That's going to be really interesting if that happens. And if that happens for baseball, then football.
It's going to be a rolling stone. Everything else is going to follow suit.
So we got to have a body. What my point is, look, if you could argue with me on those minor league guys, like you could make an argument and go, well, Sudu, what if this guy's 18? He got drafted right out of high school. He doesn't like it. He wants to come play college. You could make that argument with me, and I'd go, well, yeah, if he's within an age range, maybe that's where that age range
18 years old? Yeah.
Maybe that age range we talked about earlier comes into effect here, which is like, as long as you haven't played, I would even say AAA and above. Because once you're playing AAA, you're pretty, you're
right
pretty damn good.
You're at the doorstep.
Yeah. I mean, AA, you're really good.
Yeah.
But let's say between the ages of 18 to 24 up to AA, you could come back. I would go, okay, fair enough. Like, especially if you haven't played college baseball or you still have eligibility, sure, you can make that argument. With the NFL, it gets a little tricky to me.
Mhm.
But once again, there's got to be a governing body. There's got to be people that know more than you and me about college athletics, how it works, what are the repercussions.
Why not us, Sudu? Why not us?
That is true. It could be us, I guess, because of the way things are going right now. It feels like anybody could do it,
Right?
and the NCAA
Yeah.
can't. But it's just, I cannot say this enough. It can't be the NCAA. It has to be a body we can actually trust, that has been created brand new from scratch, that has input from all the conferences in college sports.
Which is going to be a whole other argument in and of itself.
100%.
Which conferences have the power?
Yeah, and college athletes, man, it's just, it has to happen. We have to get them a collectively bargain. That you have to treat them like employees so you can actually enforce these laws. Otherwise, it's just made up laws by bodies that don't actually hold power in the courts, which is what we're seeing right now.
It's like, hey, you can't do that. Okay, show me.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go to my local judge who, will enforce the Tennessee law, because your law doesn't apply in all 50 states.
Who also went to Tennessee, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Who went to Tennessee.
Big fan.
Yeah. So right now, man, we're getting to the point in college sports where I feel like your legal budget is just as important as your NIL budget.
Yep.
Because if you can now win battles in roster building, retention, whatever, you can win those in court, and you don't actually have to go win them in living rooms or in your bank account with, whatever, with checkbooks against other programs, and you can just do it through the courts. Then that's just a weird territory to be in for technically an amateur sport. It's really not, but technically an amateur sport.
It is, yeah.
It's truly remarkable, man, the era we've entered, the issues we're facing, and what's to come is going to be interesting, including, once again, another plug here, Trinidad Chambliss, Pittsburgh, Mississippi. I believe 9:30 a.m. Central is when his case is set to begin. Talk of Champions with me, Brad Logan, Ben Garrett. I guess it's their podcast. I'll be joining them on there. We will be covering it, live coverage. We'll have Brad in the actual courthouse streaming the case. Make sure you check that out at Spirit Ben on Twitter, at Sudu TV, or at Brad Logan. You'll be able to see it if you research it on Twitter, you'll be able to see it tomorrow. We're very excited about that. Before we go, Miles, we just found out recently, I guess today or yesterday, that North Dakota State is the latest FCS program making the jump to FBS. They're going to be joining the Mountain West. North Dakota State is a dominant
the Alabama
FCS.
of D2 of FCS. Excuse me.
100%. Yes, it's. I mean, they have just been. I mean, I think the most dominant program.
It's been them at James Madison, and James Madison made the jump.
Yeah, exactly. And has done a great job making that jump. Now it's North Dakota State's turn. I think this is going to go very well for them.
I agree.
I get it. It's
especially
the FCS
in that
level. Exactly. You win 10 out of 15 national titles in any level, especially FCS, which isn't like that much of a drop off from FBS, right? I think they're going to be good. Like, I have the Bison probably running the Mountain West. Now, the bad part is they will not be eligible for conference championship game or postseason play until 2028. And they won't even make money until way after that off of those games. So we could see a scenario where North Dakota State just comes in and runs it in the Mountain West, and they don't even get to be in the postseason. But man, I think they're going to be good in the FBS level.
I agree. And I again, there's not much else to add to it, but yeah, I mean, like I said, we've seen this before, right? James Madison did it. Curt Cignetti, shout out to the Elon head coach. He got the Duke set back up there. I gotta have my plug in there, but yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point now, especially with NIL and the wins and what they've established there at the FCS level. They're gonna get dudes there, and now that you add in the added elements, not like they're joining the ACC or any of these big time Power 4 conferences, they're gonna have the ability to come in and immediately win right away, as you said. I mean, again, it might not be to the point where you're competing, obviously, given the ruling, and be able to compete in the college football playoff, but I don't think that's a big issue for them, frankly. They already have the brand that they have at the FCS level. That brand's going to stay there no matter what. Will there be growing pains? I'm sure. You might see that happen, but you look at how fast things change. I mean, here locally, look at Kennesaw State. They made the jump. They immediately went to the conference championship game. These things can happen very, very fast in college football.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm looking at the FCS national title, just, who's won the national championships over the last however many years. And I mean, I'm looking at this, man, from 2011 to 2015, it was just North Dakota State. 2011, North Dakota State. 2012, North Dakota State. 13, 14, 15. Then James Madison came in 16. This was pre Signetti, I guess.
Signetti, yep. Yep. Then Signetti hired him from Elon. Sad.
So, man, just incredible what they've been able to do. And then, like I said, it kind of stopped in 2019. So that was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, missed one, 6, 7, 8 national titles in 9 seasons, and
Insane.
then they missed 2020, and then they won again in 2021. Then South Dakota State actually won the next 2. Then North Dakota
Dakotas,
State won.
man. It's the Dakotas.
They got some ball. Hey, they play some ball up there, man. Like that.
Carson Wentz, Trey Lance. Come on now.
That's what I'm saying, dude. That conference itself is just so dominant, dude. The Missouri Valley Football Conference is just insane. But
Lance's little brother was the quarterback there too, wasn't he?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. So just incredible stuff. I can't wait to see. I love seeing those jumps being made.
I do too. It's great.
As a college football nerd, just like to be like, what are they going to play like, and just to see the differences and how quickly these programs can adapt. It's a good case study in like what the competition level truly is, like how much the drop off is from FCS to FBS. But incredible stuff. Before we go, dude, you're really plugged in with Georgia Tech. You got anything you want to talk about regarding the Yellow Jackets? I know there's some excitement over there, and you recently collabed with Mudcat, and you had your interview with Reggie Ball, which was really cool. It's doing numbers. But yeah, man, just as a Jacket guy, how do you feel about Georgia Tech?
Yeah, no, it was really cool to get Reggie on to talk. We're actually speaking with former ACC Player of the Year Jonathan Dwyer. I'm going to get his thoughts. Talking Jackets here pretty soon. But yeah, to put it plainly, it was a tough offseason for Georgia Tech, right? I mean, you lose Haynes King, you lose Aaron Philo, who's coming in with all this publicity, had all the
you lose Buster Faulkner. I think it starts there.
It starts there. Yeah, Buster Faulkner. I should have prefaced that, taking Aaron Philo down to Florida along with some other guys, a handful of other players that obviously didn't have the same type of publicity, of course, as an Aaron Philo, but look, I mean, Buster had his offers a year before, right? I mean, he's been a hot commodity in college football for quite some time, coming from Kirby Smart's staff. He's a guy that I think is going to get Florida up and running very, very quickly with that new
100%.
coaching staff over there. But Georgia Tech, I mean, I think their big focus has really been the transfer portal. I think they've found a lot of success there in years past. Obviously, getting a guy like Haynes King through that, that's just one big one. Obviously, they've had a handful of others, but
they love the Haynes. They love anybody with the name Haynes.
They get Justice Haynes now. That's their biggest.
They had Jamal Haynes, the running back.
Jamal
now they get
Haynes,
Justice Haynes. I mean, they
Justice
just love the Haynes, man. They're like my underwear drawer, man. Just a lot of Haynes in there.
Yeah, the Haynes.
What is that? We need to get down to the bottom of this. What is it with Brent Key's obsession with Haynes? This man needs a Haynes sponsorship. Maybe that's what Georgia Tech needs on its jerseys, is the Haynes sponsorship, man. You got Justice, you got Jamal, you got Haynes King. Come on, man.
Well, we know he's already going to get the Zen sponsorship. So if we can get him the Haynes sponsorship too, that's going to be absolutely huge. But yeah, that's obviously I'll say the biggest get they got in the transfer portal. Justice Haynes, coming from Michigan, coming from Alabama, a lot of different circumstances surrounding that though. But Georgia Tech's an offense that likes to run the ball. George Godsey, former Georgia Tech quarterback, has had a stint in the NFL for quite some time. Kind of taking the Kirby Smart, Mike Bobo route, roommates in college, the quarterback that he's now put in place to be his offensive coordinator.
That sounds like music to Georgia fans' ears when you mention
I'm sure they're
that.
Going to love that, right? Yeah, getting the Mike Bobo type for Georgia Tech there. But it'll be interesting to see, man. I'm really curious to see what Godsey brings to this offense. We know the creativity that Buster was able to do. They actually brought in a receiver from Elon, Furman. So I'm excited to see how he does with this team now. They lost Isaiah Canyon, of course, to Georgia. So it's going to be a completely different Georgia Tech team from quarterback, coaches, all the way down. So it's going to be interesting to see this year.
And obviously, like we said, you were most recently, at a station that's partnered with the University of Georgia. They launched their Glory NIL initiative. Georgia, obviously, over the last few years has kind of been seen as one of the schools that maybe didn't need to spend as much money on NIL and, for paying players. I mean, because of the excellence they've had under Kirby Smart and the national championships. But I think obviously they're getting to the point now where they realize, man, we really got to step up NIL because kids that were going to come to Georgia are getting bought in other places.
Mhm.
How much of that were you kind of involved with, like covering, and what do you think about that?
In regards to Georgia specifically?
Yeah, just that Glory
Mhm.
Glory initiative that they launched.
To be honest, I haven't been told a whole lot about it. It was kind of a thing that was sort of presented on my way out at Fox, so I
Yeah.
I I don't really know a whole lot behind it, but, I mean, you hit the nail right in the head, right? I mean, it was you look at the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas of the world before this NIL transfer portal stuff became really the extent of what it's become, and you did think, yeah, that they don't need to do that. They can just rely straight off their recruiting, but I think Kirby Smart's finding out very quickly, and, he posted a video as well to that Glory Glory X handle talking about, hey, we need this. This is the landscape of college football now. It's all about investment. It's all about paying these players to keep these players here to keep them happy, and that's going to be what it is going forward. Georgia Tech's
Yeah.
doing it. Georgia's doing it. Every single school in the country, maybe outside of Clemson, is doing it right now.
Yeah. Well, frankly, I was surprised. So obviously having covered Georgia so closely for over 2 seasons, but also being an Ole Miss grad, seeing the way Ole Miss was so early in NIL and being so, at the forefront of really advancing early in that process, and then seeing a program as dominant as Georgia not really having a great NIL infrastructure, it always surprised me. I was like, you're already this good. Imagine if you had this NIL infrastructure, what that could do for you. But I guess at the time, because they were already winning, Georgia didn't really see, maybe they just didn't see the vision for
Mhm,
where college sports was going. So it always shocked me,
mhm,
honestly, with UGA. And of course, I worked with their collective, Classic City, over there
mhm,
too, which, we did some fun projects through that. But this is what I expected Georgia to have done years ago. And I think this
mhm.
glory, glory thing, I mean, it's Kirby Smart basically telling his fan base, all right, guys, look, I can get these kids to campus, but other schools are going to come to them and go, actually, we'll just give you way more money
Mhm.
to where you're coaching and all the things you're going to Georgia for
And
anyway. So
you'll
don't even worry
start
about that.
immediately. Georgia
Yes.
had that
Start
thing years
immediately.
past where you had a guy like Jalen Carter who was a backup, like just
Yeah.
thinking about like a Jalen Carter isn't going to be, or rather now, or isn't going to be staying at that school and waiting his turn. He's going to start immediately at whatever school that might be. That's just the way it is now.
Yeah. 100%. And it's Kirby saying, I'm sick
Mhm,
of, all these programs
mhm,
taking kids that I knew I would have gotten
mhm,
previously that have commit to me most of the
mhm,
time. And then Texas comes in last second and says, here's $3 million. And he's sick
mhm.
of it. So yeah, it's encouraging UGA fans to become a part of this. And there's some membership tiers to this,
Sure.
which are, affordable. I mean, from
Yeah.
$20 to $150, you can make donations yearly, 215 to 1620. I mean, there's all
Take a little
kinds of
picture at
ways.
Sanford Stadium, take a picture at the
Yeah.
Stag, different I did see
Yeah.
those different levels, it was
Yeah.
interesting.
It's like those are just, to me, like I said, seeing Ole Miss do this so early, it just felt like no-brainers. I was like, well,
Mm,
why haven't you done this yet? But now I think after losing twice in the Sugar Bowl over the last couple of years, after having so much hype, Georgia's going, all right, we got to retain talent and we got to bring the type of talent we used to have when we were winning those titles. And now this is their way of competing. I'm interested to see how schools can catch up in these regards. Like schools that weren't ahead of it early, how quickly they can catch up. And as we know, if you have big donors who give large lump sums, you can catch up almost
mm.
immediately. But I'm interested to see how the mini tier options, how quickly that works for the University of Georgia. So,
Well, there's also no, I mean, not to bring things back to Georgia Tech, just because I cover them pretty in depth, but
yeah,
it's one thing that a lot of Georgia Tech fans have seemingly not quite picked up on, in my opinion. You see things that Georgia Tech has done the past couple of seasons. Having games inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, having that game against Georgia inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the fans are saying, "Hey, you're taking a game away from our home field at Bobby Dodd Stadium, where." You're getting $10 million from these types of games to keep up in this NIL landscape. They for some reason I don't get why certain fan bases haven't been able to wrap their head around that, saying, "Oh, we'll get money elsewhere." No, you got to take advantage of any and all of these opportunities you can get. $10 million, that might be able to get what 2 5 stars on your team. You do that twice, that's 4 5 stars. You got to keep churning, finding ways to get these money making opportunities on your campus. Otherwise, you're
yeah.
going to get left by the wayside.
100%. No, it's a big deal. And like I said, having seen, I mean, not just Ole Miss, I say Ole Miss early on, but Tennessee was really big into it. I mean, there are certain programs who off the rip, when NIL became a
Yep.
thing, they were like, let's go. we're going to get out ahead on this. We're going to use this to compete. And Tennessee's another one that has a really great collective. So yeah, there's a lot of programs that did it early. There's some programs now trying to catch up. I'm interested to see how that goes moving forward. But no, man, appreciate you for coming on, Miles. You can follow Miles on Instagram. Is it Miles Garrett TV?
Instagram is Miles M. Garrett.
Miles M. Garrett.
Miles M.
Twitter?
Garrett.
What's your Twitter?
Twitter is Miles Garrett TV.
Miles Garrett TV. What about TikTok?
TikTok, also Miles Garrett TV.
Miles Garrett TV. Y'all can follow Miles's work there. Miles is going to contribute to Mudcat Media as well, so you can obviously see his work at Mudcat Media on social media platforms. You can follow me at Sudu TV on pretty much everything, including YouTube. If you're a Game Runs Deep listener on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, make sure you subscribe to us there as well, along YouTube and all these other places that you get it. Wherever you get us, make sure you subscribe. Give us a like. It really helps us out. And Miles, I hope to see you back on here soon, buddy. Thanks for joining.
Let's do it. Let's talk some more ball.
All right, brother.